Awareness is supposed to be the good one. Of all the traits you could be stuck with, this is the one people congratulate you for. Perceptive, insightful. You don't miss things. In a world that mostly runs on autopilot, being awake to what's actually happening sounds less like a burden and more like an upgrade. So here's the strange part. For a certain kind of person, awareness stops being a skill they use and quietly becomes a condition they live inside. They don't decide to notice. They just notice. The half-second shift in a friend's voice. The second meaning folded under a polite sentence. The way the air in a room changes the moment one particular person walks in. All of it, all the time, with no off switch and no volume dial. And the question I want to dig into is this. What is actually happening when awareness stops being something you do and starts being something that happens to you? The easy read is that these people are overthinkers, anxious, too sensitive, reading into things that aren't there. And look, sometimes that's partly true, and we'll get to that, because pretending it isn't would be its own kind of flattery. But mostly the easy read misses the machinery underneath, because the too aware person usually isn't inventing the signals. They're picking up real ones, the micro expression, the pause that lasted a beat too long, the thing nobody said out loud. The problem was never that they see things that aren't there. It's that they can't stop seeing the things that are. Start with the body, because this lives there before it's ever a thought. Most people's brains are built to ignore things. It's called habituation, and it's one of the kinder things your nervous system quietly does for you. The clock ticking, the hum of the fridge, the feeling of your own socks against your feet. Your brain registers it once, decides it doesn't matter, and stops forwarding it upstairs. You get to walk through an entire room and consciously take in almost none of it. That's not a lapse in attention. That's the filter doing exactly its job. For the too aware, that filter runs loose. The clock never fully disappears. The hum stays in the room. The socks are regrettably always a little bit there. And if that's true for socks, imagine what it's like for the things that actually carry meaning. Faces, tones, the temperature of a conversation. It's like living with a smoke detector dialed one notch too sensitive. On one hand, you will catch the real fire before anyone else in the building is even awake, and there are days when that genuinely saves something. On the other hand, the same device shrieks at burnt toast, at the steam off a kettle, at a slightly long shower, and you cannot rest in a house that keeps announcing that everything might be an emergency. The sensitivity that protects you is the exact same sensitivity that wears you down. You don't get to keep one without the other. They're the same wire. Now move outward, into other people, because this is where the awareness gets handed a job. Walk the too aware person into a room and watch what they do before they've decided to do anything. They take its temperature. Who's tense? Who's performing ease they don't feel? Who clearly had an argument in the car on the way over? Most people walk into a room and join it. This person walks into a room and reads it first, then decides who to be inside it. There's a name for the dial behind that, and it's not the one you'd expect. Mark Snyder, working back in 1974, described what he called self-monitoring, the degree to which a person tracks how they're landing on others and edits themselves in real time to match. High self-monitors are forever reading the social feedback and adjusting the performance midstream. It's a real measurable difference in how people move through the world, and for the too aware, it isn't vanity at all. It's closer to a reflex they never agreed to, and the cost of that reflex is quiet, and it's this. When you're that busy managing the room, you are never quite in it. You're a half step outside, running the sound desk, watching the levels, catching the feedback before it squeals. Everyone else gets to simply have the evening. You get to produce it. You go home tired in a way that's hard to explain to people who spent the same 3 hours just talking. Then there's the strangest door of all, the one that turns the whole apparatus back on itself. because the too aware person isn't only aware of you, they're aware of themselves being aware of you. They catch their own face mid-expression and wonder what it's broadcasting. They replay a sentence they said an hour ago and audit it for the version of themselves it might have revealed. The microphone is pointed inward at least as often as it's pointed out, and there's a quiet trap built into that, one that almost everyone gets wrong by a wide margin. Thomas Gilovich and his colleagues, studying what they named the illusion of transparency, found that we badly overestimate how visible our inner states are to other people. The nervousness you are certain is written all over your faces, to everyone else in the room, mostly invisible. For the too aware, who feel everything so loudly on the inside, that gap becomes a private hall of mirrors. What's blaring in here must be obvious out there, so they manage it and monitor it and replay it at 2 in the morning. The awareness never closes the worry, it feeds it, and the worry feeds the awareness, and round it goes. And here's where it stops being a trait and slips, almost without anyone noticing, into an identity. For a lot of people, this didn't arrive from one dramatic moment. There's often no single scene to point to. It accreted slowly the way sediment does. Somewhere along the line, noticing got rewarded. You were the one who saw the problem coming. You caught the mood nobody else mentioned. You were useful precisely because you were tuned in. And being needed for a thing is one of the fastest ways to quietly become it. The friend group, the family, the team at work, they all learned that you would track what they didn't bother to, and you learned that the tracking was your value. So now it isn't just something you do, it's who you are the second you walk in. The one who notices. And a role like that is genuinely hard to set down, because setting it down can feel like agreeing to become useless. The awareness keeps running in part because by now a number of people are quietly counting on it too. I want to be careful here because this is exactly where these conversations tend to go wrong. It's tempting to land on, and that's beautiful. You're just more tuned in than everyone else. And then we all feel warm for a second, and nothing true has been said. So, honestly, some of you are paying for this in ways that are worth naming plainly. The exhaustion is real. Running a high-resolution feed on every room you enter is expensive, and you feel the bill by Thursday. And some of the awareness costs the people around you too. When you narrate someone's feelings back to them before they've worked them out, when you head off a problem that was never going to happen, when you can't let a quiet room simply be quiet, that isn't always perception. Sometimes it's a way of staying in control of a situation that an old fear told you wasn't safe. That part isn't a gift, and it doesn't get better by being called one. That part is yours to look at, and to be fair to the other side. The people who don't live like this, who move through rooms missing half the subtext, are not broken either. They sleep better. They take things at face value and are right to more often than the too aware would ever believe. There's a real freedom in not registering everything, and it's okay to envy it a little. So where does all of this leave the person who is too aware? Not with a cure because there isn't one, and you'd hate it if there were. You are not going to install the filter that other people seem to have come with. The sensitivity that catches the real fire is the same one that catches the toast. We covered that. It's one wire, not two. But there is a difference between drowning in the signal and aiming it. Awareness as a condition runs you. Awareness as a choice is something you point. The shift was never going to be from seeing too much to seeing less. It's from I have to track all of this to I get to decide right now what is actually worth my attention, and then trusting that the detector will still go off on its own if there's a real fire, even on the nights you stop standing guard directly beneath it. That's not a downgrade. It's the difference between a sense that owns you and a sense that you own. If you want something to actually do with this, try one small thing today. and treat it as an experiment rather than a fix. Pick one low-stakes setting, making your coffee, walking to the car, standing in a checkout line. For the length of that one task, give your attention a single job. The thing in your hands. The weight of the cup. Its heat through the side. The texture of whatever you're holding. That's the whole assignment. And when you catch yourself scanning the room or reading the person beside you, and you will almost instantly, don't fight it. Just notice it. Name it silently, scanning, and walk your attention back to your hands. You're not switching the awareness off. You're showing your nervous system one time that the room can run for 10 minutes without you posted at the door. One setting, one task. See what it's like to be in the room instead of monitoring it. And I genuinely like to hear this one because it lands differently for everyone. What's the thing you always notice that the people around you seem to walk straight past? Put it in the comments. Partly because someone scrolling by is going to read yours and feel a small, strange relief that their brain isn't the only one that does that. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, the quiet patterns running underneath how people actually work, that's most of what we do around here, so stick around. There's a lot more coming, and the next one might just put a name to something you've been carrying for years without one.